Welcome to our literature class today. My name is Percy and we are here inside Far Eastern University. And today we are going to talk about the novel Les Misérables. It's a French literature, a French literary piece written by Victor Hugo, who also wrote the classic Hunchback of Notre Dame, among many other classical novels. Today, we are going to see the plight of Jean Valjean, the main character or the protagonist of the novel, and of course, the pursuit of Javert as the antagonist in the story, together with some of the miserable experiences of Fantine. We will also take a look at the love story of Marius, Cosette, and Eponine, together with the revolutionary plight of Enjolras, and the taking advantage of the Thénardiers in running the inn. These are some of the characters that we will encounter in the novel Les Misérables. And together with me are my students in World Literature in Far Eastern University Institute of Education. So I want you to join us as we do an online class talking about the themes of Les Misérables, such as the injustice that happened in France in the 1800s, the different characters and their role and how they represented France in the novel, as well as the difference between the lower class and the upper class as depicted in the struggles of the characters in the story. Join us today as we talk about the story Les Misérables in our World Literature session. Hi everyone, welcome to our literature class. Today we are continuing our discussion on European literature and we are focusing on one of the classics of world literature, part of the canon. And this is something that everyone's familiar with, whether be it the written text, nabasa nyo yung novela, or probably you've seen the movie version, or the musical. You are fond of watching or listening to the musical. So you have an idea what we're talking about today. We are going to talk about Victor Hugo's classic, Les Misérables. Okay, so how many of you are familiar with that? Just show a raise of hand in your cameras. You're familiar with Les Mis? Okay, good.
A bit.
I'm sure you all are. Okay, hopefully, I'm sure you have read the novel or at least have seen the musical. Now, before we start, it's very interesting to talk about the title itself. Okay, and later on, I want to hear from you about the idea on the title. No, I'm not sure where I was back then. I think I was in the US when in the bus station. So I encountered a French lady, and I was holding the book Les Mis. And she was very eager to ask me, what are you reading? So feeling close, diba? So I told her that I'm reading the novel, Les Misérables. And she said, how did you say that? Les Misérables? I go, yes, it's Les Misérables. Sabi niya, no, it's pronounced Les Misérables. Okay, Les Misérables. So, okay, so you're French, I'm not. So probably you're right, I'm wrong. I don't know. But that's an interesting experience. So, in English, of course, it talks about the miserables. And I want to hear from you, class. What is miserable in the story? After probably reading the novel or watching the movie, what is miserable in the story? Sige, Ding, what do you think? Yes, go ahead.
Sure, I think what was considered miserable in Les Miserables is the different experiences of the character. The like for example, for Jean Valjean, he was imprisoned. And was forced to a labor camp for years just for stealing a loaf of bread. That's considered miserable. And then what comes after as well, when he was given on parole, but then things happen. For Cosette, maybe for Cosette, for being denied of his lover, but then of course, as we know in the ending, he was reunited again with his lover. Overall, what was considered miserable in the story is most likely going to be the different experiences or the different bad experiences of the characters and how the story was put together around it and how they connected to each other.
That's a very good insight, Ding. Anyone else who would like to share? What do you think is miserable in the story? Or maybe in the context of the story?
Sir, I'll just comment on that. Sir, I mean, looking at the system itself, it's just crazy how that one system is how that one system treats the citizens, or let's say the normal citizens of a country, or let's say in that movie in France, parang the person itself there is just John Valjean is just stealing the loaf of bread for the sake of being fed. Tapos nakulong pa siya sa ginawa niya. It's kind of
Right.
like justice.
Yeah, that's right. And I want to comment on that. Thank you, Kin, for sharing that. Imagine stealing. And of course, we know that stealing is wrong, diba? And in any other law of the land. But to steal, probably to steal money, to steal, to corrupt, diba, in a government, to steal money from people, would be sort of saying, needless to think about it. It's wrong. But to steal a loaf of bread, it communicates a lot about the kind of society they have. So what does that show about the kind of society they are, economic status they have? Sige, Jazz, do you want to share something?
Yeah, the problem also, sir, is that that person will be labeled as a thief, regardless of what he stole, whether it is a loaf of bread, whether it's money, whether it's silver, whatever he stole, he will be labeled as a thief. And the system itself or the society itself will look at him as a thief, regardless if he stole for the sake of his family.
Right. And he was labeled because of the act of stealing.
Yeah.
So regardless of, yeah, that's right. What can you say about Javert? Or Javert? Okay. I felt bad. I've read the novel several times, but I felt bad because there's that, character who would throw his life just to pursue one person. Diba? You could have been happy your entire life. You could have pursued something else. You could have at least
Obsession.
obsession, exactly. You could have be in a relationship or probably, just date somebody, just have a life. Come on, dude. But what you're doing is every day of your life, you're thinking, where is Valjean? Where can I? Diba? So imagine exactly, I agree, the kind of obsession that person had. Yes, Kin, are you raising your hand?
Si Valjean, parang he is trying to live a good life, escaping what happened in the past for being labeled as thief. But then this person keeps on pursuing him and telling him na, hindi, you are this person, you are a thief. Parang hindi ba pwedeng mabago yung tao? Something like that.
Exactly. Okay. Now, thank you, Kin, for sharing that. I want you to comment on this. What can you say about Javert's standard when it comes to morality, when it comes to being a righteous person? Do you agree that Javert is actually the symbolism of the law? And in relation to that, what can you now say about the law as represented by Javert in the context of France? Because if Javert is actually the representation of righteousness, lawfulness, and the kind of law that he is exerting in the story is like that. Now, how does that reflect the kind of law or system France had during the 1800s? Teres, would you like to share something?
No, sir, kasi yun nga, according to the story po, diba, Javert was seen as someone who pursued Valjean for something that Valjean did. And then yun nga po, parang it symbolizes the reign, the reign of the government during that time, that parang, kasi it was also seen in the story that there were movements na against sa government, which probably sa character ni Javert pinapakita na yung government, they are really trying to execute everyone that are going against them, which says so much about the political system during that time.
Exactly, that's right. Very good. Imagine the injustice, and again, I keep on repeating that, no, as the main theme of the story, the injustice in an entire country, diba? Being ruled by the king and the queen, the monarch, okay? And the novel is obviously a reaction against the oppression, the selective justice, the kind of rulership the king and queen espoused in France in the 1800s, diba? So, yes, technically speaking, Valjean is a thief. And when you do something wrong, it requires punishment, di ba, by the law. But sometimes we look at the letter of the law, the legality of the law, the letter meaning the technicality of the law. But maybe one of the things that needs to be seen there is not just the letter of the law, but the spirit of the law. What is the law all about? Is it for people or against people? Di ba? When you look at not just the letter of the law, kasi in the letter of the law, it's obviously wrong. But when you look at the reason behind, di ba, the spirit of the law sort of saying, makatao ba or hindi? Di ba? Sige, Jazz.
Okay. Yeah, so I agree with you, sir. Being a Muslim naman, in our Islamic law as well, that thieves should be punished. However, the government or the ruler should do their part as well. Meaning, for example, if the ruler didn't provide for their people for the very least a leaf of bread, then the law shouldn't be implemented. Because for the law to be implemented, the people shouldn't be hungry. The people should have at least food on their table. If they don't have that, then the law shouldn't be implemented. That is how justice should be implemented, naman. It's not only about the law, but as you said, sir, the reason behind the person, why did he commit such a crime?
Right. Thank you. Very good. That's very well said. I like that. And if you look at that statement in relation to the novel, no, and probably in relation to 21st century societies in general, no, a lot of the things that we are hearing from, international news or maybe local news, diba, probably would at some point resemble some of the injustices happening. You see some of the protests in some Asian countries, in Latin American countries, and most of the time, if not all the time, they will talk about how the law is being used against the people, not just to provide or protect for the people, but to, to put people down. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, next character, Fantine. What can you say about Fantine? I think personally, okay, before you share your thoughts, no. Personally, I think Fantine is the embodiment of the title Les Miserables. Okay, she is one of the most, if not the most miserable character in the story. Let me read this portion quickly. Fantine is a poor working class girl from a desolate seacoast town, an orphan who has almost no education and can neither read nor write. Fantine is inevitably betrayed by the people she does trust. She got pregnant by a man and then was abandoned. Then the daughter, Cosette, was taken by the Thénardiers and used the child to extort more money. And Fantine's co-worker have her fired for indecency. Okay, and then after that, she has to prostitute herself. She has to sell her hair, her locks, her teeth, everything. And if you have seen how it was depicted in the movie, that's, I think, that's heartbreaking. Okay, that's Fantine. What can I say now about the representation of Fantine in the story and what Fantine represents in probably the entire France back then?
I think, in my opinion, Fantine depicts the people of France, how the people in power robbed the common people of what they had. Just like what happened to Fantine, he lost his job because of the powerful people who blamed her for indecency. How Fantine had to, quote unquote, sold away her child because of and have someone else take care of her because of her being incapable of doing that, having her lover leave her for it because of having a child, and everything else. Basically, especially it was depicted even more when Fantine had to prostitute herself, had to sell her hair and her teeth, and selling what is dapat para sa kanya, what is a part of her just to live, is a depiction of how France has robbed the people of the French people.
Right. Thank you, Ding. It's basically a representation of the lowest of the low. sort of saying in France back then. Sige, Jazz, would you like to follow up on that?
I'd just like to comment naman, sir, on the whole what you said about her. The society itself, they are the one who create these kind of people. So, for example, now being a prostitute, they are being blamed for that and being bashed, diba, and insulted. But did we ever thought of why did they become that way? Didn't we created them? If we gave them opportunities to become better people, wouldn't they want that as well? So I think it's the society and the rulers. They are the one who created these kind of people, and after that, they will blame them for not for the society not being that civilized.
Right. Right. Thank you. And I guess that's being depicted as well in the novel, no? In as much as the powerful are, upholding power and becoming richer and richer every single day. The commoners, the common people are becoming poorer, more oppressed, di ba? Lack of education, all of this. Somehow, yes, that's true. It's actually brought by society in general because, the government probably did not care that much. Di ba? They allowed it to happen. And that's the sad reality. Okay, so thank you, Jazz, for sharing that. Suddenly, there was that love story between Cosette and Marius. Okay, so, probably a personal comment, no, but of course, it's just me. This is one of the things that I don't think should be part of the novel anymore. But I feel like everybody's fighting for their rights, everybody's reacting against oppression. Suddenly, Marius fell in love with Cosette. Okay, so wow, what a timely, di ba? What a perfect opportunity to fall in love. And of course, that's just me, di ba? The anti-romantic person in me, no? But think about the and a lot of you can actually relate more with Cosette and Marius, no? The killing factors, the love triangle with Eponine, the on my own, pretending he's beside me, and I'm sure you all know what's happening there, no? But comment on the love story. Yes, Kin, are you going to sing?
No. On my own. Charot. Sir, I think kasi he is from a rich family while the girl Cosette is from a poor family. So I think Victor Hugo wanted to portray the division of the status between the girl and the guy, and then the two falling in love. Parang ganun po. And
Right,
then
right.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you. That's right. Marius Montmercy, the full name, is a middle class. Actually, not just a middle class. He's actually a son of a general and a very politically involved family. The family of Marius is divided. Okay, so there's the revolutionary pro-democracy and there is the pro-monarchy. And think about how characters are represented, no? Everybody's fighting for injustice. The poor fighting for rights, equality, the prisoner, and so on and so forth. And here comes the rich person thinking about love. Here comes this privileged guy just thinking about, oh, ang ganda ni Cosette, a heart full of love, di ba? Parang love at first sight. Anyways, so that's Marius for all of us. Falling in love with Cosette. Growing up, Cosette became the katulong, di ba? The house help of the family, the Thénardiers. And Eponine, the daughter of the Thénardiers, was treated as a princess. But look at the contrast now. Growing up, Eponine fell in love with Marius, and Marius fell in love with Cosette. How would you describe the character of Eponine in the story? Yes, go ahead.
Sure. I think she also reflected the character of being selfless. Kasi even at the end of the story, di ba, parang Marius was being pointed at a rifle, but then she willingly put herself in shoes of Marius for her to be shot instead of Marius. Parang, I guess, selfless itself na rin for her love for Marius po.
Right. I think she is the thank you for sharing that, Kin. She is the hopeless romantic in the story, the one who would sacrifice everything for a guy. Okay, the Thénardiers, the parents of Eponine. What can you say about the Thénardiers and anong nire-represent nila in society?
They are the other, kumbaga, side of the coin pagdating sa common folk. They are the
Mhm.
people who are willing to step on their own just so that they can get on top.
Right.
Kaya ako sila tinawag na social climbers because they want more. But
Mhm.
then again, the reason why they want more is because they have nothing at all.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
So,
yeah, go ahead.
ayun. So, since they have nothing at all, they want more. But then the idea of having more makes them want to have more. So that's why it's a constant cycle for them to go up even further.
Right. So it shows the greed, no, the discontent because probably of the background that they had. At one point, you would hate them because they take advantage of people. But on the other side, if you would be critical about it, what Victor Hugo is showing here is that it's a means of survival in this very oppressed kind of living. You would do whatever it takes just for you to feed your hungry stomach, your family. And if it takes doing crime or if it takes taking advantage of people, so be it, as long as I can eat.
I just like what I would like to comment naman of on what you said a while ago. Like, if we want to be critical about it, like, what do you call it? I accept the fact that that person had a background, a miserable background that forced him to act that way or to do that way. But the problem is that in general naman, from a moral perspective po, if we're gonna have what they call explain every person's motives, like, oh, this person had a what do you call this, hardships, I mean, in his life or in her life, therefore that's why she did this or he did this and that and that. In our society naman, if we take that kind of perspective, that kind of mindset nowadays na, let us say, very simple naman from our daily lives na, like those killers na, killers.
Right.
Like a lot of them who have psychological issues, or they've faced like they've been in miserable situations and traumatized in their childhood, but still, it does not justify the crime that they did naman.
Right.
Especially if the crime is did to other people, not to themselves na.
Yeah.
That's why it
Stepping
does
on
not
others.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If I want
That-
to
that's-
yeah.
Yeah, of course, of course. Thank you, Jazz. See the contrast, no, of Fantine and the Thénardier, no, two people trying to survive, trying to to make a living, but the other one would probably be more justifiable or quote unquote moral or ethical because she did not, talking about Fantine, she did not take advantage of anybody. While just like what Jazz said, no, on the other side, these are two people trying to, the miser, trying to, to fool other people just to earn a living. And in the story, the tone of the Thénardiers is very serious, very, in the novel, no, very seriously written. Contrary to the musical kasi made them a comic relief, di ba? They made it a comedy. Every time they would appear, people are laughing because their dialogues and their songs are, especially the woman, no, si Madame Thénardier would always give the punchline. I would encourage you to listen to the musical or at least watch the YouTube version. Marami naman dyan. You would definitely love the character. Okay, just the balance. So in short, Victor Hugo is showing different characters that represents different kinds of people in the struggle of France back then. Last but not the least, of course, my favorite, save the best for last, Enjolras. Ras is a very charming young man. Not me, si Enjolras. Despite his good looks, however, he has no interest in romance. See, di ba, there's so many problems in society and Marius is thinking about love, thinking about his passion for a lady while people are literally dying, di ba? That's why I love Enjolras. Enjolras is devoted to the ideals of democracy and freedom. He is a skilled combatant during the rebellion, facing a battalion of National Guard on his own. If you compare Enjolras with Marius, Enjolras dying in the end and Marius surviving, Diba? I want you to give your comment on that. Diba? What do you think Victor Hugo is trying to say there? The one who leads the revolution is actually the one who died, short-lived. And the one who's even confused about joining or falling in love is actually the one who survived. What's happening here? What do you think the author is trying to show?
Pinatay yung democracy.
Mm. Who said that? I missed out.
Yes,
Who said that?
Kin.
Kin,
Said ni
si
Kin,
Kin.
no? Let's go,
Okay.
Kin.
Exactly the point. The point is democracy died in the story. Right? Democracy died in the story. And that's the most frustrating part of Victor Hugo's novel. Of course, in the musical, it's not shown. Diba? It's just one of the characters who died, but in the end, it's happy ending. Everybody went to heaven. Parang ganun yung pinakita ni Cameron Mackintosh, the producer of the musical. But the novel is different. The novel shows how democracy and freedom died.
Sir, I would just want to comment about when you said democracy died. And it showed naman in history in general that usually of any revolution, the leader usually dies. However, that could be the spark that would lead people to actually rise against oppressive oppressive rulers. And that is a good thing naman. Even though he died, from my perspective lang, he could be the spark that would start somebody else, would influence somebody else to continue his legacy or his message or what he's trying to do, the good he's trying to do. And from in our society naman, if we look back to the history, all the things that we now are have the freedom that we have, the civilization, it was built. But let us be true now. Let's be realistic. It was built on blood. It was built on blood of people who sacrificed themselves, so we, the next generation, would have these kind of freedoms now. It didn't come easy for them, and that is the reality that we're living in. And now we will do the same. That's the point, naman. This generation should do the same for the next generation as well. Gets muna. So if we want things to be better, we need to sacrifice. That is the truth. And it's been like that forever naman, since the beginning.
Exactly. Excellent. That's right. Diba? It's always built on blood, just like what Jazz said. Thank you. Kin, yes. Would you like to share something?
Just to add on that po, it kind of makes you reflect and wonder why the system or why the people in general in the first place would always reside on their human parang perspective na parang laging silang selfish, that they would always resort on that sense. Parang it takes a big thing like the oppression itself para ma-realize that the people itself are not being humane or not being themselves. Parang ganun po. Na they always resort to doing something bad. Na it would look as if it's the natural thing, which is actually parang, diba, nasa what do you call it? Parang flesh ng tao maging parang makasalanan or imperfect. Parang ganun po.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. That's right. Yes, Dara.
Parang just to add up kay Jazz, it says that there's no easy way to get freedom. You really have to sacrifice and you have to fight for the things that you want to fight for just to get that freedom. Pero still, there is someone who needs to die muna before that happens.
Yeah, thank you. These are very good insights. Now, one last thing, going back to the novel, and this is actually one of the caveat or the epiphany in the novel. Remember, he has no place to go after breaking the parole. He's trying to escape. Nobody wants to admit him because he's ex-convict. And then he went to the church. He was taken care of by Yel. And then, in return, he stole some of the candlesticks, some of the silverwares, and tried to escape. And he was caught by Javert again. But instead of being sent to prison, the bishop actually said, I gave it to him. Diba? So it's an act of kindness. You doing you taking advantage of somebody, yet that person you took advantage of extended kindness back to you. So imagine your act of kindness right now, di ba? In this day and age where people are fighting each other, people are taking advantage, people are hating on one another, and then you, as a literature student, di ba, try to extend kindness to other people. Imagine the kind of impact it would have, di ba? That can actually draw people to a change life. I'm not preaching. I'm just trying to, I'm just trying to make sense of that lesson from the story.
Yes, sir. Hi.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yes. Sorry, kanina ko pa kasi ito iniisip ever since you mentioned yung The Death of Javert. Because honestly, out of everything that happened in the story, that was actually one of my favorite scenes. Why?
Mhm.
Because The Death of Javert made me realize how big of an impact it is to have your morality, your sense of justice, and everything else that makes you broken. Because if I remember correctly, di ba nga, the reason why Javert killed himself is because he considered his life not his own anymore. Because Jean Valjean saved him, right? So to an extent, that's actually one of my favorite scenes in the movie because yun nga, because he could not live with the fact that all his life he had the realization na all his life, oh no, all his life I have been doing the wrong thing. What I call justice is not actually justice.
Exactly. Yeah, very, very. I think that's the most touching part of the story. Diba? How evil, the representation of injustice and evil turned on a different side, diba? And had an epiphany. I want to quote before we end this. No, I want to quote from the novel itself. It says here, teach the ignorant as much as you can. Society is culpable in not providing a free education for all, and it must answer for the night produces. If the soul is left in darkness, sins will be committed. The guilty one is not he who commits the sin, but he who causes the darkness. Another quote. There is always more misery among the lower classes than there is humanity in the higher class. Diba? We're the ones who's suffering all the the corruption, all of the ills of the upper class, the ills of the ones in power, and there is less humanity in the upper class. Would you like to share something?
Yes,
Go
sir. Parang while discussing po on this matter, I just realized, sir, that diba, in the whole story itself, yun nga, the French people led a revolution, which was like the big part, the big scene in the movie itself. But when you look on contrary to what happened to Javert and Jean Valjean, diba, sir, parang it can be deemed as something as victory as well, na parang nanalo sila. Na in a sense, Jean Valjean was able to turn Javert into the person that he is, the good side of him. He was able to change him po, and he made him realize what he is, parang ganun, sir.
Exactly. So probably, thank you, Kino, for that. Probably what the novel is saying, is changing society is not always easy, but changing a person, one act of kindness at a time, may be
One
possible.
man at a time, sir.
One person at a time may be
Yeah.
possible. And of course, for you to have a change of society, change should begin from from the little things, from a little act of kindness or an extension of forgiveness, let's say, or repentance and all of this and that, diba? And that makes the story more humane, diba? More personal. Short of saying, Les Miserables is the best story there is in the world. The joke. Okay, that's my bias. No? It's the most beautiful, well written, perfect. The joke. Classic novel. Jazz, are you raising your hand?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have a question, sir. If you were to write the ending of the novel, what would you choose now?
Nako. Tara.
Curious lang.
Tara.
Pero wala na si Marius dyan.
Another 1 hour.
Patay na si Mario.
Bukod
Wala na.
Enough the question. Thank you, Jazz. That's a very good question. No? Let me indulge you for a moment. If I will write Les Mis, I will not just choose the ending, but I will change a lot of the details of the story. Number one, I will not let Fantine die. Another thing is I would change probably the ghost part. There are a lot of portions in the novel where Fantine would visit as a ghost. I will let Cosette casted Marius. I like that. Diba? I don't want them to end up together because it's not time to have a relationship in that context. I would let Enjolras take over. Okay, I want actually to have an encounter with Javert and Enjolras in the ending of the story. And then, dami kong sinabi, no? It's just one question. I want to change a lot in the novel. Just why did you ask me this one? I can write an entire novel for this. That's a good question, no? Think about you. If you would end the story, di ba? If you would change a detail of the story, what would that change be? Di ba? I like that question. Thank you, Jazz. I hope you learned something today. Thank you for attending our world literature class, and let's continue to be a human person and extend kindness towards people in line with the message of Victor Hugo's Les Miserables. Maraming salamat! One act of kindness can indeed change the heart of people around us, as exemplified by Jean Valjean in his struggle with finding freedom and democracy. These are some of the things that we can glean or learn from the novel Les Miserables. So I hope that as we talked about this classic novel, no matter how far it is written in terms of its historical milieu compared to our present day situation today, I hope that we will learn a lot from the examples of the characters, the kind of human person we need to be or we need to strive to be in terms of our present day struggles in our society, in this pandemic, and of course in this day and age where hatred is rampant. Our act of kindness as a human person will hopefully inspire and spark change and joy in the lives of many. Once again, this is Percy. Thank you for joining me today in our literature class. And just like what I always say, happy reading.